Do you feel the weight of your emotions pressing down on you today? Do the storms of life leave you restless, anxious, or unsettled? I want you to know that there is a divine touch available for your soul. Today, we are stepping into a sacred space where God's presence meets your heart, bringing emotional healing and inner calm like you've never experienced before. This is your moment to release the burdens that have held you captive, the doubts, the fears, the lingering pains, and allow God to restore peace within you. Whatever has stolen your joy, whatever has disturbed your spirit, today we speak life, wholeness, and divine calm over your being. I invite you right now to fully open your heart and mind because God is ready to minister to your deepest needs as we pray together. Don't just listen, participate. Declare your faith and believe that healing is flowing to you right now. Before we begin, take a moment to connect with this community. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for daily prayers that uplift, empower, and transform your life. Write amen in the comments and also share one thing you're believing God for today. Let's create a wave of faith together. Well, get ready because as we journey through this prayer, the Lord will begin to soothe your soul, restore your inner peace, and fill you with a calm that surpasses all understanding. You are not alone. God's love and healing are here for you. Understanding the roots of emotional unrest begins with the acknowledgement that emotions are not just random feelings that come and go. They are signals, indicators, and sometimes even messages from our inner selves that something within us needs attention, healing, and alignment. Many people go through life carrying burdens they do not fully recognize, burdens that are subtle, often hidden beneath layers of daily responsibilities, stress, or distraction. These burdens can take the form of unresolved grief, unspoken anger, past trauma, lingering guilt, or persistent anxiety. It is only when we pause and reflect on the state of our inner world that we begin to see the patterns that have shaped our emotional responses and the ways in which our hearts have been affected by life's trials. Emotional unrest is often the result of experiences left unprocessed, emotions left unexpressed, and wounds left untreated. It may begin subtly with restlessness in our minds, irritability in our interactions, or a general sense of dissatisfaction that we cannot quite explain. For others, it may manifest more overtly through mood swings, difficulty sleeping, or physical manifestations of tension such as headaches, fatigue, or tightness in the chest. The body and the spirit are interconnected, and emotional unrest is never purely mental. It often affects the soul, the heart, and the physical body simultaneously. It is essential then to take a deliberate and compassionate approach to understanding the roots of our unrest. This begins with introspection, a willingness to look inward without judgment. Many times we are quick to suppress our emotions or distract ourselves with activity, avoiding the uncomfortable truth that linger beneath the surface. However, true healing begins with awareness. When we identify the moments, events, or relationships that have caused emotional pain, we are no longer powerless. Awareness allows us to see the change that bind us, the patterns that repeat, and the unhealed areas that need God's touch. It is in this moment of awareness that we create space for transformation. One of the first steps toward understanding our emotional unrest is to recognize the influence of our past. Childhood experiences, formative relationships, and unresolved incidents can cast long shadows over our adult emotional landscape. Often we carry wounds from experiences that we have long forgotten consciously, but that continue to influence our reactions, beliefs, and emotions subconsciously. Perhaps we grew up in an environment where we were criticized, neglected, or made to feel unworthy. Perhaps we experienced trauma, betrayal, or rejection in ways that we never fully process. These experiences, when left unresolved, embed themselves in our emotional memory. shaping how we respond to life's challenges and how we perceive ourselves. Emotional unrest is, in many ways, the echo of these past experiences, calling for attention, understanding, and divine intervention. As we move forward in recognizing these roots, it is crucial to understand the role of thought patterns in our emotional state. The mind is a powerful instrument, capable of generating peace or turmoil depending on what we feed it. Negative thinking, self-criticism, and limiting beliefs create fertile ground for emotional unrest. We may find ourselves trapped in cycles of worry, rumination, or fear, revisiting past mistakes or imagining future catastrophe. These thought patterns often reinforce feelings of helplessness or anxiety, intensifying the unrest we feel within. It is here that spiritual insight becomes transformative. When we allow God to guide our thoughts, to illuminate the areas of our hearts clouded by fear or misunderstanding, we begin to replace the patterns of unrest with patterns of peace. Prayer, meditation, and the intentional practice of gratitude allow us to recalibrate our minds, shifting focus from the problems that overwhelm us. Another root of emotional unrest lies in unmet expectations, whether of ourselves, of others, or of life itself. Many people experience emotional turbulence because they have not learned to surrender their expectations to God's perfect timing and wisdom. When we hold tightly to what we think should happen or how we believe people should act, we create tension within ourselves. The disappointment that inevitably follows triggers feelings of frustration, sadness, or even resentment. Learning to release these expectations, to align our desires with God's will, and to trust His plan is foundational to understanding why our emotions may feel unsteady. Emotional unrest is not always a reflection of personal failure or inadequacy. Often, it is the natural result of resisting the flow of life, of holding on too tightly, or of seeking control in areas where control is not ours to claim. Relationships also play a significant role in our emotional landscape. Human connections, while capable of great joy, can also introduce pain, misunderstanding, and emotional disturbance. The words and actions of others can cut deeply, leaving scars that fester if left unaddressed. Betrayal, rejection, criticism, or neglect from family, friends, colleagues, or partners can create emotional unrest that is difficult to shake. Even in situations where relationships appear healthy on the surface, unresolved conflicts, suppressed grievances, or miscommunications can slowly erode inner peace. Emotional healing requires the courage to confront these relational wounds, to seek forgiveness where necessary, and to extend forgiveness to those who have wronged us. Forgiveness is not about condoning hurtful behavior, but about liberating ourselves from the emotional chains that bind us to past pain. By releasing resentment and choosing compassion, we create space for inner calm and restore emotional equilibrium. Spiritual alignment is another essential factor in understanding the roots of emotional unrest. When our hearts are disconnected from God, or when we neglect the spiritual disciplines that sustain our soul, we become vulnerable to emotional turbulence. Prayer, worship, meditation on Scripture, and communion with God are not merely rituals, they are lifelines for the spirit, channels through which peace flows. Emotional unrest often diminishes when we intentionally center our lives on God's presence, drawing strength, clarity, and comfort from His Word. The Spirit of God speaks to us in moments of stillness, guiding us to recognize unresolved emotions, hidden fears, and unaddressed pain. It is in this sacred connection that we find the capacity to confront our emotional unrest with courage and wisdom. Physical well-being is deeply intertwined with emotional health, and ignoring the body can exacerbate feelings of unrest. Poor sleep, nutritional deficiencies, chronic stress, and lack of exercise can intensify emotional sensitivity, irritability, and anxiety. Understanding that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit reminds us to treat it with care and respect. Proper rest, nourishment, and movement not only strengthen the body, but also stabilize the mind and emotions, creating a foundation for lasting inner calm. When we honor God by caring for ourselves, we remove one layer of the stressors that contribute to unrest, allowing healing to take root more fully. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence are critical tools in this journey. Recognizing and naming our emotions, understanding their triggers, and observing patterns in our reactions allow us to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Emotional unrest often escalates when we deny our feelings, push them away, or fail to articulate them. By becoming attentive observers of our inner world, we gain insight into the mechanisms of our emotional responses and equip ourselves to address them with grace and wisdom. Journaling, reflective prayer, or counseling can provide structure and clarity in this process, guiding us toward deeper understanding and intentional healing. The power of choice is a crucial aspect of understanding emotional unrest. While we cannot always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. Choosing to seek God's guidance, to confront our emotions honestly, and to embrace healing practices is a transformative act. Emotional unrest loses its grip when we actively engage in the process of restoration, choosing hope over despair, faith over fear, and calm over chaos. The journey is not always linear. There will be setbacks and moments of struggle. Yet with each conscious choice to surrender our unrest to God, we move closer to lasting peace and emotional stability. Finally, it is important to recognize that emotional healing is not an event, but a process. Understanding the roots of emotional unrest is the first step, a necessary foundation upon which all other healing is built. It requires patience, compassion, and persistence. Each moment of reflection, each act of forgiveness, each prayer offered, and each choice to realign with God contributes to the restoration of the soul. The journey may be gradual, but it is steady and transformative, allowing us to emerge with a deeper sense of self-awareness, resilience, and divine peace. As we continue this exploration of emotional unrest, we learn to embrace ourselves fully, to acknowledge the areas that need God's touch, and to trust that He is working in every circumstance for our ultimate healing and inner calm. Releasing past hurts, pain, and anxieties begins with an honest recognition that the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget. Many people move forward in life carrying emotional weight they have normalized, learning to function while wounded, smiling while burdened, praying while still bleeding internally. But past hurts do not disappear simply because time has passed. They remain stored in memory, in the nervous system, and often in the soul, quietly shaping reactions, expectations, and emotional responses. Anxiety frequently grows from these unresolved places, from moments where safety was broken, trust was violated, or hope was deferred. To release what hurts us, we must first acknowledge that what we experienced mattered, that the pain was real, and that it left an imprint that deserves healing rather than dismissal. Emotional healing does not require reliving trauma, but it does require naming it, bringing it out of the shadows and into the presence of God, where nothing is hidden and nothing is too broken to be restored. Many individuals struggle with release because they confuse letting go with losing something or surrendering control. In truth, release is not abandonment. It is transfer. It is the act of placing what you were never meant to carry into the hands of the one who is strong enough to hold it. Pain becomes heavier when we cling to it, replay it, or allow it to define our identity. Some hurts linger because they became familiar, because pain was repeated so often it shaped personality, boundaries, and self-perception. Anxiety thrives when the nervous system is conditioned to expect danger, disappointment, or loss. Releasing past pain requires retraining the heart to believe that peace is possible, that safety can be restored, and that God's presence is more powerful than what happened. This process unfolds gently, layer by layer, as trust is rebuilt within the soul. Anxiety often disguises itself as responsibility, vigilance, or preparation. Many people believe that if they worry enough, they can prevent pain from returning. The mind becomes hyper alert, scanning for threats, replaying scenarios, and rehearsing outcomes. Yet this constant state of alertness exhausts the spirit and disrupts inner calm. Releasing anxiety means recognizing that worry is not protection, it is captivity. It binds the heart to imagined futures and unresolved pasts, keeping peace perpetually out of reach. God does not ask us to ignore reality. He invites us to trust Him within it. When anxiety rises, it is often an invitation to surrender control, to rest in divine assurance rather than human effort. Peace does not come from knowing everything will go according to plan, but from knowing that God remains present regardless of the outcome. Past pain frequently resurfaces through emotional triggers, situations, words, or environments that awaken old wounds. A tone of voice, a certain silence, or familiar conflict can activate reactions that feel disproportionate to the present moment. These responses are not signs of weakness. They are signals from the nervous system that something unresolved is asking for attention. Healing occurs when we respond to these moments with compassion rather than shame. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" the healing question becomes, "What part of me needs care right now?" God's healing presence meets us most powerfully when we stop condemning ourselves for our wounds and begin inviting Him into them. Emotional release often starts with self-kindness, with the permission to feel without judgment and to heal without pressure. Forgiveness plays a central role in releasing past hurts, but forgiveness is frequently misunderstood. It is not denial and it is not excusing harm. Forgiveness is a decision to stop allowing the past to dictate the emotional present. Holding on to resentment may feel like justice, but it ultimately poisons the one who carries it. Forgiveness does not erase memory, it transforms its power. When we forgive, we break the emotional contract that ties our peace to someone else's action. Forgiveness is an ongoing process, sometimes repeated many times, especially when wounds were deep or prolonged. God's grace strengthens this process, enabling us to release what feels impossible through human strength alone. As forgiveness unfolds, emotional space opens, allowing calm to replace tension and clarity to replace confusion. Releasing pain also involves grieving what was lost. Many people attempt to move forward without honoring their grief, believing that faith requires emotional suppression. Yet grief is not a lack of faith. It is an expression of love, loss, and humanity. Unacknowledged grief often turns into anxiety, irritability, or emotional numbness. Grief needs language, space, and compassion. It may involve mourning relationships that ended, opportunities that never came, or versions of ourselves that were shaped by pain. God meets us in grief, not to rush us through it, but to walk with us as it unfolds. Tears, silence, prayer, and reflection all serve as sacred pathways through which grief softens and eventually transforms into wisdom and strength. The body plays a significant role in releasing emotional pain. Trauma and anxiety are often stored physically, showing up as muscle tension, shallow breathing, fatigue, or restlessness. Emotional healing includes learning to calm the body so the mind and spirit can follow. Slow breathing, intentional rest, gentle movement, and moments of stillness signal movement and moments of safety to the nervous system. When the body feels safe, the heart begins to open and emotional release becomes possible. God's peace is not only spiritual, it is physiological. Inner calm flows when the body learns that the danger has passed and that it is no longer required to remain in survival mode. Prayer becomes especially powerful in the process of release when it shifts from performance to presence. Instead of striving for the right words, prayer becomes an offering of honesty. God already knows what the heart carries, yet healing deepens when we speak it aloud or hold it consciously before Him. Prayer allows pain to be acknowledged without being empowered, surrendered without being minimized. In moments of quiet communion, the soul learns to exhale. Peace often arrives not as an overwhelming sensation, but as subtle reassurance, a gentle settling, a gradual loosening of emotional grip. The more consistently we bring our anxieties and wounds into God's presence, the less authority they retain over our inner world. Releasing the past also requires redefining identity. Pain often attaches labels to the self: broken, unworthy, unsafe, abandoned. Anxiety reinforces these labels, shaping expectations and self-talk. Healing involves replacing these internal narratives with truth. Identity anchored in God's love becomes the foundation upon which calm is rebuilt. When we see ourselves through the lens of divine compassion, rather than past pain, emotional freedom becomes possible. The heart begins to trust again, not necessarily in circumstances or people, but in God's faithfulness and sustaining presence. This trust does not erase caution or wisdom. It restores balance, allowing discernment without fear and awareness without anxiety. Letting go of anxiety also means learning to live in the present moment. Anxiety thrives in the future, feeding on uncertainty and imagined outcomes. Peace resides in the present, where God's grace is always sufficient. Practicing presence involves grounding attention in what is real and immediate: the breath, the body, the awareness of God's nearness. When the mind drifts into worry, gently returning to the present interrupts the cycle of fear. This practice over time retrains the nervous system and strengthens emotional regulation. Calm becomes more accessible, not because life is predictable, but because the soul learns where to anchor itself when uncertainty arises. Emotional release is not linear. Some days bring clarity and peace, while others resurface old feelings unexpectedly. This does not mean healing has failed. It means healing is unfolding. Each time pain is met with compassion, anxiety with surrender, and fear with faith, the grip loosens. Progress is measured not by the absence of emotion, but by the increased ability to respond rather than react. God's patience with our process teaches us patience with ourselves. Inner calm grows quietly, often unnoticed at first, until one day we realize that what once overwhelmed us no longer holds the same power. As past hurts are released, space is created within the heart. This space becomes fertile ground for peace, joy, and emotional resilience. Calm does not eliminate emotion. It stabilizes it. The healed heart still feels deeply, but it no longer feels helpless. Anxiety may still knock, but it no longer dictates behavior. Pain may be remembered, but it no longer defines identity. Through surrender, forgiveness, presence, and divine connection, emotional burdens gradually lift, allowing the soul to rest, breathe, and trust again, allowing peace to settle gently within, restoring balance, clarity, and quiet strength within the inner world. Cultivating inner calm through daily prayer and spiritual disciplines is not about escaping life's pressures, but about learning how to remain anchored while life unfolds. Inner calm is a spiritual posture, a settled assurance that exists beneath the surface of circumstances. Many people search for peace by changing their environment, their relationships, or their routines. Yet inner calm is not produced externally. It is cultivated internally through consistent connection with God. When prayer becomes a daily rhythm rather than an emergency response, the soul begins to recognize stability even when the world feels uncertain. Calm is not the absence of noise. Prayer at its core is communion, not performance. It is the intentional turning of the heart toward God, allowing His presence to shape thoughts, emotions, and responses. Daily prayer does not require lengthy words or perfect language. It requires sincerity and consistency. When prayer becomes habitual, it trains the mind to pause before reacting, to seek guidance before assuming, and to breathe before responding. Over time, this practice rewires emotional patterns, replacing urgency with discernment and fear with trust. Inner calm grows quietly in these moments of connection, not as a dramatic shift, but as a gradual softening of internal resistance. Many struggle with prayer because they associate it with obligation rather than nourishment. When prayer is treated as a duty, it becomes heavy. When it is embraced as sustenance, it becomes life-giving. Just as the body requires daily nourishment, the spirit requires daily alignment. Skipping spiritual disciplines does not always result in immediate discomfort, but over time it weakens resilience, making the heart more susceptible to anxiety and emotional fatigue. Daily prayer restores perspective, reminding the soul that it is not alone, not unsupported, and not responsible for carrying everything by itself. Spiritual disciplines extend beyond prayer into intentional practices that create space for God's presence. Meditation on scripture, moments of silence, worship, gratitude, and reflection all serve as anchors for inner calm. These disciplines slow the pace of the mind, allowing clarity to replace chaos. In a world that rewards speed and productivity, stillness becomes countercultural. Yet it is in stillness that the soul regains balance. Silence is not emptiness, it is receptivity. When the heart learns to be still, it becomes more attuned to divine guidance and less reactive to emotional triggers. One of the most powerful aspects of daily spiritual discipline is its cumulative effect. A single moment of prayer may bring relief, but sustained practice builds emotional resilience. Just as physical strength develops through repetition, spiritual strength grows through consistency. Over time, the heart becomes familiar with peace, recognizing it as a natural state rather than an occasional experience. Anxiety loses its dominance as the nervous system learns that calm is accessible and safe. Through daily spiritual engagement, the soul develops a memory of peace, making it easier to return to calm when stress arises. Inner calm is also cultivated through intentional gratitude. Gratitude shifts focus from what is lacking to what is present, grounding the mind in reality rather than fear. When gratitude becomes a daily discipline, it rewires perception, allowing the heart to notice God's faithfulness even in small moments. Gratitude does not deny difficulty, it reframes it. It reminds the soul that hardship does not erase goodness and that struggle does not negate support. This practice stabilizes emotions, reducing rumination and fostering contentment. Calm grows where appreciation is practiced consistently. Another essential discipline is surrender. Daily surrender involves releasing control, expectations, and outcomes into God's hands. Many people pray while still gripping their worries tightly, asking for peace while resisting trust. True calm emerges when surrender becomes a daily choice rather than a last resort. Surrender is not passivity, it is alignment. It is the conscious decision to trust God's wisdom over personal understanding. Through surrender, the heart learns to rest even when answers are incomplete, cultivating patience and emotional steadiness. Breath-centered prayer is a simple yet profound practice that connects the body, mind, and spirit. Slow, intentional breathing calms the nervous system, signaling safety and reducing physiological stress. When paired with prayer, breath becomes a bridge between the physical and spiritual. Inhaling peace and exhaling tension creates a rhythm of release and renewal. This practice anchors awareness in the present moment, where God's presence is always accessible. Over time, breath-centered prayer becomes a refuge, a place the soul can return to whenever overwhelm arises. Spiritual disciplines also foster self-awareness, allowing individuals to recognize emotional patterns without judgment. Daily reflection creates space to observe thoughts, reactions, and triggers, illuminating areas that need healing or adjustment. This awareness empowers intentional response rather than impulsive reaction. Inner calm grows when emotions are acknowledged rather than suppressed, understood rather than feared. God's guidance often emerges in these reflective moments, offering insight and direction that restore balance and clarity. Consistency in spiritual practice builds trust, not only in God, but also within oneself. When the soul experiences repeated moments of calm through prayer and discipline, confidence grows in the ability to navigate emotional challenges. This confidence reduces fear of future distress, as the heart knows it has tools and support. Calm becomes less fragile, more resilient, capable of withstanding pressure without collapsing. This resilience is not self-generated, it is cultivated through ongoing relationship with God. Community also plays a role in sustaining spiritual discipline. Shared prayer, collective worship, and spiritual accountability reinforce commitment and encouragement. Inner calm is supported when individuals feel connected and understood, reminding them that they are not isolated in their journey. Community practices amplify individual discipline, creating a shared rhythm of faith and peace. This collective support strengthens resolve, especially during seasons when personal motivation wanes. Daily spiritual discipline does not eliminate emotional challenges, but it changes the way they are experienced. Stress may still arise, but it no longer dominates. Uncertainty may persist, but it no longer paralyzes. Inner calm becomes a stable undercurrent, allowing emotions to move without overwhelming the soul. This calm is not emotional numbness. It is emotional regulation grounded in faith. Through daily practice, the heart learns to remain open without becoming flooded, attentive without becoming anxious. Spiritual disciplines also teach patience with the process of healing. Calm is not achieved instantly. It is cultivated gradually. Daily prayer reinforces patience, reminding the soul that growth unfolds over time. This patience reduces self-criticism and fosters compassion, allowing healing to proceed without pressure. God's presence becomes a steady companion rather than a distant goal. Inner calm deepens as trust in this companionship grows. As these practices become integrated into daily life, they shape identity. The individual begins to see themselves not as reactive or overwhelmed, but as grounded and supported. This shift in self-perception reinforces calm, creating a positive feedback loop. Identity rooted in faith stabilizes emotions, reducing susceptibility to external chaos. Calm becomes less dependent on circumstances and more anchored in spiritual connection. The invitation to cultivate inner calm through daily spiritual disciplines is an invitation to reclaim agency over one's emotional life. It is a call to choose presence over distraction, trust over fear, and consistency over convenience. This choice is renewed daily, sometimes moment by moment. Each act of prayer, each pause for reflection, each breath of surrender strengthens the foundation of calm. Now pause for a moment and reflect honestly. What is the one habit or distraction that most interferes with your daily time of prayer and inner stillness? What emotion do you find hardest to quiet when you try to be still before God? Have you noticed how your body responds when you take time to pray consistently versus when you skip it? I want you to answer these questions in the comments because your reflection may help someone else recognize their own struggle. Share what you are learning about yourself as you seek inner calm, and let your voice become part of this collective journey toward peace, awareness, and spiritual grounding. Speaking life, restoration, and emotional wholeness over your soul is a sacred act that aligns the inner world with divine truth. Words are not neutral. They carry weight, direction, and creative power. Every word spoken inwardly or outwardly becomes a seed planted in the soil of the heart. Over time, these seeds grow into beliefs, emotional patterns, and expectations. Many people unknowingly speak against themselves daily, reinforcing fear, inadequacy, and unrest through careless language and internal dialogue. Emotional healing deepens when the tongue is retrained to cooperate with God's intention for peace rather than echo past pain. Speaking life is not denial of reality. It is the intentional proclamation of truth that transcends circumstance. The soul listens constantly. Even when words are spoken silently, the inner being absorbs their tone and meaning. Self-talk becomes the soundtrack of emotional experience, shaping how the nervous system responds to stress and how the heart interprets events. When the inner dialogue is harsh, critical, or hopeless, the soul remains in a state of tension. Restoration begins when compassion replaces condemnation and faith replaces fear in the language used toward oneself. God's word becomes a mirror through which the soul learns a new vocabulary, one rooted in grace, strength, and divine assurance. As truth is spoken consistently, the soul begins to soften, trust, and stabilize. Speaking life involves aligning language with identity rather than experience. Experiences change, emotions fluctuate, but identity grounded in God's love remains constant. When life feels overwhelming, the temptation is to describe the self through struggle, labeling the heart as broken, anxious, or defeated. While honesty is necessary, identity must not be anchored in temporary states. Speaking life means affirming who you are even when emotions contradict it, declaring peace during turmoil, strength during weakness, and hope during uncertainty does not ignore pain. It places pain within a larger framework of redemption. This alignment gradually reshapes emotional responses, creating internal coherence and calm. Restoration through spoken affirmation is not about repeating phrases mechanically. It is about intentional engagement with meaning. Words spoken with awareness and faith penetrate deeper than words spoken out of habit. When affirmations are rooted in divine truth, they carry authority that transcends emotion. Repeating words of peace during anxious moments signals safety to the nervous system, interrupting cycles of fear. Over time, these spoken truths create new neural pathways, reinforcing emotional stability and resilience. The soul learns to associate certain words with calm, trust, and grounding, making restoration more accessible during moments of distress. Emotional wholeness is nurtured when language honors the full spectrum of human experience without being dominated by it. Speaking life does not require suppressing emotion, it requires guiding it. Naming emotions compassionately while affirming stability creates balance. Saying, I feel anxious, but I am safe, or I am grieving, but I am supported, acknowledges reality while reinforcing security. This balanced language prevents emotional overwhelm and fosters self-regulation. The soul feels seen and supported rather than dismissed or overwhelmed. Restoration unfolds when language becomes a bridge between emotion and truth rather than a battlefield between them. The practice of blessing oneself verbally is often overlooked, yet profoundly healing. Many are comfortable praying blessings over others, but hesitate to speak blessings over themselves. Self-blessing is not arrogance, it is alignment with God's intention for well-being. Speaking words of kindness, encouragement, and affirmation toward oneself counters internalized criticism and shame. Over time, this practice rebuilds trust within the self, creating a foundation for emotional wholeness. The soul responds to kindness with openness, making it easier to release tension and receive peace. Language also shapes memory. Repeated verbal framing of past experiences influences how they are stored and recalled. Speaking about the past through a lens of growth, resilience, and learning rather than failure and loss transforms its emotional impact. Restoration involves retelling personal narratives with compassion and wisdom, allowing pain to be integrated rather than reactivated. When the past is spoken of gently, its power to disrupt the present diminishes. Emotional wholeness grows as memories lose their sharpness and become sources of insight rather than distress. The rhythm of spoken prayer further reinforces emotional restoration. Prayer spoken aloud engages both the mind and body, grounding attention and calming the nervous system. Hearing one's own voice declare peace, surrender, and trust strengthens belief and reduces internal conflict. Spoken prayer externalizes inner burdens, making them easier to release. The act of speaking becomes an act of letting go, transferring weight from the self to God. Calm deepens as the soul experiences the relief of expression and surrender. Consistency is essential in this practice. Speaking life once may bring momentary comfort, but sustained practice builds lasting transformation. Daily declarations of peace, strength, and restoration create an internal environment where calm can thrive. Over time, these words become automatic responses to stress, replacing old patterns of fear and self-criticism. Emotional wholeness is reinforced as the soul learns to default to truth rather than panic. This consistency fosters trust, allowing the heart to relax and remain open. The tone of language matters as much as content. Gentle, steady speech promotes calm, while harsh or rushed speech increases tension. Speaking life involves not only what is said, but how it is said. Softness in tone communicates safety, allowing the nervous system to settle. When words are spoken slowly and intentionally, they carry a soothing quality that supports emotional regulation. This practice becomes especially powerful during moments of overwhelm, when calm speech can interrupt escalating stress responses. Community affirmation amplifies personal practice. Hearing words of life spoken by others reinforces internal beliefs and strengthens emotional resilience. Shared declarations, prayers, and affirmations create a collective environment of support and peace. Emotional wholeness is nurtured within connection, where language reflects mutual care and understanding. This shared practice reduces isolation, reminding individuals that they are seen, valued, and supported. The soul responds to collective affirmation with increased openness and trust. Silence also plays a role in speaking life. Intentional pauses between words allow meaning to settle and emotions to regulate. Silence creates space for reflection, preventing reactive speech that may reinforce distress. In moments of stillness, the soul integrates spoken truth, allowing it to permeate deeper layers of awareness. This balance between speech and silence fosters harmony, preventing overload and promoting calm. As emotional restoration deepens, language begins to shift naturally. Words of fear and self-doubt lose their frequency, replaced by expressions of clarity and confidence. This shift reflects internal healing rather than forced positivity. Emotional wholeness manifests as coherence between thought, speech, and feeling. The soul experiences less internal conflict, allowing energy to flow more freely. Calm becomes a stable presence rather than a fleeting experience. Speaking life also involves setting verbal boundaries. Choosing not to engage in language that perpetuates negativity or chaos protects emotional well-being. This includes limiting exposure to conversations, media, or internal narratives that trigger unrest. Boundaries are acts of self-respect, reinforcing the value of peace. Emotional wholeness is supported when the environment reflects intentional care. The practice of speaking restoration over the soul is ultimately an act of faith. It is the choice to trust that words aligned with divine truth carry transformative power. This trust grows through experience. As repeated practice yields increased calm and stability, the soul learns that it is safe to hope, safe to trust, and safe to rest. Emotional wholeness emerges not as perfection, but as integration where all parts of the self are acknowledged, supported, and aligned with peace. Through intentional language, gentle affirmation, and consistent practice, the inner world becomes a place of refuge rather than conflict, a space where calm resides naturally, restoring balance, strength, and quiet assurance within the soul. Empowering your faith to believe in God's transformative power for emotional healing begins with understanding that faith is not denial of pain, but confidence in God's ability to work within it. Faith does not ask you to pretend you're whole, when you feel fractured. It invites you to trust that wholeness is being formed even when you cannot yet see it. Emotional wounds often challenge faith because they linger invisibly without clear timelines or immediate relief. Yet faith operates beyond what is visible, anchoring the heart in what is promised rather than what is presently felt. When faith is empowered, it becomes a stabilizing force, allowing the soul to remain hopeful without becoming desperate and to remain honest without becoming defeated. Many people struggle to believe in emotional healing because they equate healing with instant relief. When pain persists, they assume faith has failed or that God is distant. In truth, emotional healing often unfolds gradually, quietly, and deeply. Faith matures when it learns to trust the process as much as the outcome. God's work within the soul is not rushed, because rushed healing rarely endures. Faith empowered by understanding learns to wait without anxiety, to hope without pressure, and to trust without conditions. This kind of faith steadies the heart, allowing calm to coexist with unanswered questions. Faith is strengthened through relationship, not performance. Emotional healing accelerates when faith shifts from striving to resting. Striving faith asks, am I believing enough? Resting faith asks, can I trust God even here? Resting faith allows the heart to soften, releasing the tension that often blocks healing. When faith becomes relational rather than transactional, the soul relaxes, creating space for restoration. God's transformative power flows most freely where there is surrender rather than strain. Belief in emotional healing also requires redefining strength. Many have been taught that strength means endurance without expression, faith without feeling, or resilience without vulnerability. Yet true spiritual strength includes the courage to feel, to name pain, and to ask for help. Faith empowers healing when it allows honesty. God does not heal what is hidden out of shame. He heals what is brought into the light with trust. Emotional healing deepens when faith gives permission to be human while remaining anchored in divine assurance. And truth serve as anchors for empowered faith. Repeated exposure to truth reshapes belief systems that were formed through pain. Emotional wounds often distort perception, creating beliefs such as, I am unsafe, I am unworthy, or this will never change. Faith challenges these narratives by introducing a higher truth. As truth is internalized, emotional responses begin to shift. Fear loses its authority when confronted consistently with reassurance. Hopelessness weakens when reminded of God's faithfulness. Faith becomes empowered not through intellectual agreement, but through repeated experiential trust. The imagination plays a subtle role in emotional healing. Pain trains the imagination to expect loss or disappointment. Faith reclaims imagination, allowing the heart to envision peace, restoration, and stability. This is not fantasy, it is alignment. When the soul imagines healing, it prepares itself to receive it. Faith-filled imagination calms the nervous system, signaling possibility rather than threat. Over time, the heart learns to anticipate goodness rather than brace for harm. Empowered faith also involves patience with emotional fluctuations. Healing does not erase emotion, it stabilizes it. Some days feel lighter, others heavier. Faith remains steady through these changes, refusing to interpret temporary discomfort as permanent failure. Emotional resilience grows when faith teaches the heart to observe emotions without being ruled by them. Calm develops as the soul learns that feelings are information, not identity. Faith provides the container that holds emotion without collapsing under its weight. Trust is a cornerstone of empowered faith. Trust is built through consistency, not intensity. Small daily acts of trust strengthen belief more effectively than occasional emotional breakthroughs. Choosing to pray even when motivation is low, choosing to rest when anxiety urges activity, choosing to speak kindly to oneself during distress, these choices accumulate, reinforcing trust. Emotional healing progresses as trust becomes habitual, reducing internal conflict and increasing calm. Faith also empowers healing by reframing setbacks. Moments of emotional regression are often interpreted as failure, triggering discouragement. Faith reframes these moments as invitations for deeper compassion and adjustment. Healing is not linear, it spirals, revisiting old areas with new awareness. Each return brings opportunity for greater integration. Faith provides perspective, preventing discouragement from derailing progress. Calm emerges as the soul learns to navigate setbacks with grace rather than self-judgment. Community reinforces empowered faith. Shared belief, testimony, and encouragement strengthen individual trust. Emotional healing accelerates when faith is supported by connection rather than isolation. Hearing others articulate hope reminds the soul that healing is possible and that struggle is not unique. Faith grows in environments where vulnerability is met with compassion rather than correction. Calm deepens as the heart feels supported rather than scrutinized. Empowered faith also involves discernment, knowing when to act and when to rest. Emotional healing requires balance between effort and surrender. Faith guides this balance, preventing burnout and passivity. Discernment teaches when to seek support, when to pause, and when to persevere. This wisdom reduces anxiety by removing pressure to fix everything immediately. Calm develops as the soul trusts the rhythm of healing rather than forcing outcomes. The body responds to empowered faith through relaxation. When the mind trusts, the body follows. Muscles soften, breathing deepens, and tension decreases. Faith influences physiology, demonstrating the interconnectedness of belief and calm. As the body learns safety through trust, emotional healing deepens. Faith becomes embodied, not just conceptual. Hope is a natural byproduct of empowered faith. Hope does not deny pain, it contextualizes it. Hope allows the soul to look forward without fear, to anticipate healing without anxiety. Hope stabilizes emotions, preventing despair from taking root. Calm flourishes where hope is present, as the future no longer feels threatening. Empowered faith also releases comparison. Emotional healing is personal, unique, and non-competitive. Comparing one's progress to others undermines trust and increases anxiety. Faith affirms that each journey unfolds according to divine timing. Calm increases as the soul releases the pressure